Hi, I'm Bruno Vincent. I'm the author of Grisly Tales from Tumblewater, which is the tale of Daniel Dorey. He comes to the city of Tumblewater, where it always rains and where dark and dastardly tales are forever being told. He has his possessions stolen and is cast out into the world pretty much on his own. And just as we meet him now, he's walking through the bustling marketplace and seeing the crowds around him for the first time. Walking through the crowd, I found myself standing in a circle that had formed around a man and a pig. Inside it was a smaller circle of excited-looking children. The man was big and muscular, with long greasy hair, and his face was sweaty from shouting. "Ask Stanley," he bellowed over our heads. His voice was deep, as though he'd stolen it from a man 5 times his size. "Stanley knows the answers. See if he doesn't. Ask Stanley!" Looking round the circle, he met each and every one of us in the eye. Then, by way of introduction, he announced, "Stanley, the sapient pig." He got down on his haunches and looked Stanley level in the eye and said, as he might say to a friend, "Stanley, which hand is the coin in?" He had been fumbling his hands behind his back and offered them both to the pig, who for his part didn't seem very interested. He sat up against the wall on his large pig's backside, with his trotters hanging limply in front of him. Being sapient, I was pretty sure it was supposed to mean clever, seemed to bore him a lot. He was a brown-skinned pig with bloodshot eyes, which rolled slowly to and fro in silent contemplation. His tongue occasionally licked out to snap at the 2 flies that kept landing on his snout, and he gave the overall impression of an ancient emperor, too lazy to speak and afraid of nothing. Dismissively, he flicked a trotter at one of his owner's hands. The man turned to the crowd and showed us that it did indeed contain the coin, and that the other hand was empty. A few of us clapped half-heartedly. Then he turned around and invited us again to ask Stanley a question. A man called out, "What's 40 minus 33? Everyone's eyes turned back to Stanley with interest. He raised a trotter and clapped it on the floor 7 times. All at once the crowd grew silent and fascinated. Another man said, "How many days are there in a year?" Everyone laughed, and a big-voiced man said, "Ask him anything he's able to answer, sir, and he'll do so. He can't answer you with speech, which is quite understandable, being a pig." "How many years have I been married then?" said the same man with a smile. The pig clapped the floor twice, and the man nodded and laughed. The owner asked us again, "Any other questions?" And a man leaned forward from deeper in the crowd. There was something about his lined face, and the mean set of his mouth, and the unforgiving hardness of his eyes that unnerved me. "Tell me this, little piggy," he said. "How many murderers are there in this crowd?" Utter silence as we all looked at the speaker, who stared down at the animal, waiting for his answer. The gaze of the pig travelled down slowly from the clouds, where it had been resting, and his tongue flicked and the flies danced for a second before resting again on the brown snout. One of his trotters twitched, and then it rapped down hard on the ground once. The whole crowd broke up into shouting as men and children alike scrambled to get away. In the midst of the chaos was the pig's owner, holding out a cap and begging for contributions, but no one paid him any attention. I tried to run too, but before I could escape, I caught sight of the man who'd asked the disturbing question. He had grabbed another man around the throat and was pinning him to the ground. "Bradley Fuller," he said into the other man's ear, "I'm arresting you for murder."